let's get right to work on the latest in Pac-12 expansion, because I think this is a huge update. The Pac-12 essentially making it known yesterday that they are going to pause their efforts in expansion while they pursue a media rights deal. And this is the first time I can say, through all of this latest round of Pac-12 expansion drama, this is exactly the right thing to do, because we did a lot of work yesterday. We talked to a lot of people involved in the TV industry and Pac-12 expansion, and we were told that this is a strategic move to help leverage more expansion for the Pac-12. And as we've reported exclusively on this show, the number one hurdle that the Pac-12 is facing, and this applies to the AAC, who we're going to have more on here in a moment, the number one hurdle that the Pac-12 is facing in gaining new membership is that they are giving estimates. And as we've told you, they have estimated between $10 and $15 million in revenue per school per season. And if you go back to what Dr. Ed Scott, the athletic director at Memphis, said the other day, essentially, hey, they couldn't tell us how much money we were going to get per year. That's not going to be good enough. And now we know, now we know that the Pac-12 has put a pause on expansion to go and get that media rights deal. Let's be unequivocal. Let's be really clear. This is exactly the right move by the Pac-12. It is exactly the right move at exactly the right time, because we also talked to a lot of sources very close to the AAC. And I want to bring some clarity to the situation in the AAC, because I think this is a very important conversation. Is the Pac-12 done with AAC members and offering them spots in the Pac-12 for expansion? And the simple answer is no, they are not. But what is now the new hurdle in getting Memphis, Tulane, USF? By far, as we've reported first on this show, what is the biggest hurdle between the Pac-12 and those three schools? Well, now the biggest hurdle is that those three schools have signed a letter of intent to remain in the AAC. The biggest question is that letter of intent binding? And the answer seems to be, well, we don't know yet. You'd have to ask a judge. And it seems like that's the biggest question for the Pac-12, because Memphis, Tulane, USF, everybody else in this league signed a letter of intent to stay in the conference. What that has allowed the AAC to do, according to sources close to the situation, is go out and leverage a renewal of their TV rights deal, go out and fund their conference with private money, which I am told is the absolute number one priority of every member, and Tim Pernetti, the commissioner of the AAC, to go out and leverage private funds, which is now what they are doing. Here's where the Pac-12 comes in, because the Pac-12, and you may know this already, the Pac-12 is working with a firm called Navigate. Navigate is leading multiple dozens of institutions and conferences. I don't know, like the Pac-12. Navigate is representing the Pac-12 in conversations with other members to join the conference. So Memphis, Tulane, USF, every other target in Pac-12 expansion is getting calls from Navigate, according to our sources. And why that is significant is Navigate has led many universities to, hey, have this conversation. Here's where you should go in media rights. They are one of the top consulting firms in all of college football. And as much as we've heard about Endeavor in the Big 12, Navigate works with multiple members of the Big 12. Navigate is carrying significant influence across college football. And I am told that Navigate remains engaged with Memphis, Tulane, and USF. And that conversation, it was described to me, is all about, hey, well, what if we are able to get $15 million in a media rights deal? Those are the conversations I was told late yesterday are happening with Navigate, the Pac-12, and AAC members included in those conversations. So this isn't over by a long stretch. And as critical as we have been on this show about Pac-12 expansion and the way that they have gone about this, this pause in expansion efforts to add new members does not mean that they are not continuing those conversations. What it means is the Pac-12 is now singularly focused on getting further down the road with a new media rights deal so that then they can go and make fresh offers to Memphis, Tulane, USF, and other targets that they have expansion on their expansion list. And Jake, I think this is absolutely the right way to go about expansion for the Pac-12.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, the Pac-12 is just simply trying to remove barriers here, right? Trying to remove things that are in their way that are preventing them from getting to where they want to go. Now, I think there's been a lot of conjecture about this letter of intent and what it means and, how impactful it is. And it is true. We don't know if it is binding. We don't know just how tough it would be to get out of that. But I think what we do know is that the Pac-12 seems to be very much on the same page with other schools that it's targeting for expansion and why they're not interested in the opportunity currently and what it would take for them to be interested. And I think that's the part of this that stands out to me because when I think about, how business is done and, how things get done, when there's something standing in the way, the first step to getting past that is both sides of the conversation or both sides of the table being on the same page about what it would take to get it done. It's very much like, in my opinion, like buying a car, right? Like, hey, you go in to buy a car, you know what your number is, and the dealer knows what your number is. Are they going to get to that or not? And that's kind of what this is, right? Memphis, Tulane, and USF all have a pretty good idea of what it would take for them to be comfortable to go to the Pac-12 just as individuals. And the Pac-12 has a good understanding of that. So going into a media rights negotiation, that allows them to say, okay, we need this much if we want to get to where we want to go. And so I think, yes, that's why this is smart. And I think that, getting a media rights deal done is not an easy thing. I think a lot of people just assume that it's, it's just a gimme situation that, oh yeah, they're going to get a media rights deal and it's going to be perfect and they'll get the money they want and it's all going to be, it's all going to be kosher. And I think that it's dangerous to just assume that. I do believe they're going to get a media rights deal. What I'm not sure about is, are you going to get a media rights deal that allows you to go out and add these members from the AAC or anywhere else, any member that you would be looking at for the Pac-12? That's what I'm a little bit hesitant on. I think they'll get a media rights deal. I feel good about that, but I don't know that you're going to get, 12, 15 mil a year per school. And that's the part that's difficult, because if you're stopping expansion now, that obviously then means that when you're going to your TV partners, as we've reported, the CW, obviously Amazon Prime, and anybody else that you would look at, when you go to those folks, you're saying, hey, these are the schools we have now. This is our makeup. What would you value that at? And then what would you value schools like Memphis, Tulane, USF? What would you value those schools at? And so I'm telling you, the Pac-12 is just simply playing the middleman here, trying to put all this together. And it's a long, slow process. But the good news, as everybody so adamantly pointed out in our comments section, they have 2 years. So they have time. But what I'm telling you is, in real world scenario, you probably only have a year, because you're not going to take up that full 2 years and get close to that line where you would no longer be eligible as a conference recognized by the NCAA. So that's where I think they have to go.
Well, and I also think the details on a new Pac-12 media rights deal are huge. So let me get right to the details on that, because I also talked to several high-level sources in the TV industry yesterday, and I am told that the CW certainly is the first choice for the Pac-12, but Fubo TV, who the Pac-12 has a very strong relationship with through the Pac-12 network, because Fubo was one of those streamers that really went all in on the Pac-12 and gave them a home for a lot of viewership. That the Pac-12 is talking to Amazon Prime and Fubo TV about streaming deals, and the CW certainly seems to be the leader for broadcast television. The footprint of the CW, and the biggest challenge is how many of their affiliate stations would be willing to take full stock in Pac-12 football. That is the single biggest question, because the CW only controls the stations they own and operate. They do not have leverage over their affiliates, as, again, I consistently mention with Live Golf. Live Golf was having their final rounds either completely bypassed by affiliates. In talking to a very high-level TV source yesterday, there were CW affiliates running 80s television show reruns and reruns of game shows like Jeopardy and oh my God, Wheel of Fortune. Almost had a brain cramp there. Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy over Live Golf final round action. That cannot happen if you are the Pac-12. So can the CW offer the Pac-12 an all-in TV deal? Football is very different than golf. It is played obviously across the country all day long, Saturday, Sunday, Thursday. It's a different beast. I totally get that. But one of the biggest questions is, can the CW deliver full carriage coast to coast for the Pac-12? And most people in the TV industry I speak to do not believe that they can do that. That's going to be a huge question mark. If you are going to go back to Memphis, Tulane, and USF, can you get, affiliates of the CW to carry the Pac-12 in Florida if it's USF? That's a huge question mark. And I think that's one that has to be asked. But I think that there is no question Prime Video and Fubo TV are very good resources for the Pac-12 when we are talking about streaming. And those two have, in fact, said, yeah, we're interested. We're having conversations. Obviously, there is a relationship in place with two behemoths in streaming. That'd be Prime Sports and, of course, Apple TV. But I am told that Apple TV is nowhere right now in Pac-12 media rights negotiations. And one of the reasons that the Pac-12 conference has put a pause on expansion to focus all in on a media rights deal is because they need to reignite those conversations that they had previously before the old Pac-12 melted down. They're certainly going to go back and try to reopen those channels of communication, because I think we all agree, if you land on Prime Sports, you're in a really good spot. But that broadcast piece of this is going to be critically important. I don't know if you're a Pac-12 fan. I'd love to hear from you on how you feel about a deal for the Pac-12 on the CW. I don't know if that moves the needle enough to move somebody like Memphis, who, again, and I don't mean to be redundant, but I think it's really important to go back and listen to the words of Ed Scott, the athletic director at Memphis, because he was pretty, I don't know, is harsh the right word? This feels very harsh.
Blunt is what he was.
Here's what Ed Scott said this week about the Pac-12.
If y'all haven't seen the latest reports of what's going on between the Mountain West and the Pac-6, 7 right now, this is a fluid situation, right? So that's the other thing. When we talk about the decision that was made by the University of Memphis to not join the PAC, as I like to call them right now at this time, that was not a binary decision. That was not a, no, we're not ever going anywhere. That was based on the offer that was presented in front of us, that we're not taking that offer because we don't think less of ourselves. And I came here for a reason. You heard me in the press conference. You've heard me in any interview I've done. I'm bullish on Memphis's future. And so I think sometimes we get enamored by the new and we want to take a bad deal. And that deal was not a good deal for the University of Memphis. It certainly wasn't a good deal for our athletic department. And most importantly, it was a really, really bad deal for our Olympic sports.
I think that's pretty harsh. A really, really bad deal for Olympic sports. And again, sources told us, as I reported late last week and earlier this week, they were offering $10 to $15 million, not guaranteed. We believe that we are in a position, the Pac-12, it believes that they're in a position where they can offer their potential expansion partners $10 to $15 million a year. I am told that they have never gotten a firm offer in a media rights deal of more than $10 million. And I was told that they told Memphis it'd be $12 million. I think if you're going to get Memphis, Tulane, and USF, you're going to have to get to that $15 million number. It is, I've heard that number enough from people in the know and people around college football that $15 million is enough money to offset the cost of doing business, of flying your students. And Memphis, Tulane, USF, they take very seriously the cost and the toll that the student athlete is going to take. And it's not football that we're talking about. That's a day and a half trip for football. We're talking about softball and basketball, in baseball. We're talking about soccer, track and field. We're talking about lacrosse. We're talking about all their other lower level sports where you're traveling your volleyball team across the country on a 5-day trip away from Memphis across the West Coast, where you're not comfortable in that environment. That's not somewhere that you call home, and you're doing study halls and hotel rooms. You're doing tests that are being proctored by an advisor. Hopefully in a bigger, they try to, as it's been explained to me, you do study halls in actual hotel rooms. You do tests you try to do them in larger spaces, because when you are battling and you're a 19, 20-year-old volleyball player, there is an element where you feel boxed in. And I was told that it's not like you feel claustrophobic, but there are a lot of student athletes who want to be in bigger spaces, who want to not be in a hotel room 24 hours a day. And I totally understand that. And it's those minute details of traveling in collegiate sports that we don't think about. I don't think about, well, damn, I've been in my hotel room now for 5 hours studying and then taking a test.
Yeah.
I've never thought about that. I've never thought about the fact that, well, you know what? We're doing as a volleyball team, we're going to a venue, whether that be a gym or whatever. I am told that in G5 and in FCS, if you're a volleyball team, that you're practicing sometimes in a high school gym, not even at the college gym. You're practicing in a high school gym. You are a lot of times getting a boxed portable lunch. I was told that Chick-fil-A is one of the favorites. Apparently chicken meals across the country are wildly popular with college kids. Who knew? Bojangles was a brand that was brought up to me. I was texting with a guy about Chick-fil-A yesterday, or like you're getting a boxed lunch from Chick-fil-A after practicing in a high school gym to go back to your hotel room and do study hall and take tests.
Yeah, you don't have a life.
You don't have a life.
And
that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
And if you are a Memphis volleyball player and you're at USF, or you've flown, bused or flown from Memphis to New Orleans, that's not a bad trip. You're probably there for 2 days and you're back in Memphis. You're back at home. You're back in your own room. You're back in your own bed. Your trinkets, I was also told about like phone charging and electronic charging. Apparently kids lose charging cables. Who knew? Right? But when you're in your own bedroom and you're going to sleep and you're charging your phone and it's laying on your bed next to you, you know where the power outlet is, you know where the phone charger is, and you know that your phone's going to be charged the next morning. Like, it's little things like that we don't think about.
Yeah.
We're just trying to figure out who's going to win a football game and have access to the college football playoffs.
So when you talk about Memphis flying across the country, it's not exactly an attractive proposition, which is why the money is going to have to be really good.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult. And I think I think it's a very interesting case study of Stanford and Cal, because we told you back in that day, Stanford and Cal are spending significant money on creature comforts for their football and their basketball teams, because travel has gotten exceptionally more difficult. And I use the word exceptional because you're not used to, as a basketball team, being on the road for 10 days at a time. You're not used to that. And most of the time when you were on the road for that long, where were you? Well, you were at like the Maui Invitational, so it wasn't that bad. But if you're flying to Charlotte, or if you're flying to Miami, and then you're probably busing from Miami to Tallahassee, right? To like, you look at ACC travel for somebody like Florida State, they're actually trying to make it easier by flying, not busing, from Miami to Tallahassee. They're looking at the cost financially versus the cost on the student and the staff and the infrastructure. And I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think it makes a heck of a lot of sense, because as a basketball team, you don't have the equipment issues that a football team has. So as a basketball team, you can fly from Miami to Tallahassee. If you're a football team, you're trucking your equipment from, Palo Alto to South Florida or to Atlanta. And that equipment, your game day equipment, is probably staying on the East Coast if you're coming back the next week.
Miami going to Cal this week, right? I mean, that's
Yes.
that's been well documented that they left on Tuesday and they're trucking their equipment across the country. And I think that this is all there's challenges to all of it. It's the business operations of collegiate athletics. But the reality is, when it comes to changing that formula and that equation, and, when it comes to the proposition of regularly going west, I just think there's a lot of hesitation. And so because of that, the money, like I said, has to be really good. The money has to make it worth the pain. And the money has to allow the school to invest in those creature comforts and to make sure that the experience of the student athlete stays at the highest level possible, because what these schools can't have is a hit to their athletic department's reputation about travel and the experience. Kids talk, kids know, which athletic departments spend money and which don't. If you think that Under Armour versus Nike doesn't matter to a kid, you're out of your mind. If you think that, the quality of the locker room doesn't matter to a kid, you're out of your mind. Like, all these little things matter to kids, man. They care about, having a good experience and having nice things. And that's why I'm saying, like, the impacts of this, the ripple effect of, hey, we're going to join the pack is never ending, in my opinion. There's always going to be someone who isn't thrilled with it. So I also think if you're the Pac-12, you got to find a way to shift the conversation from how hard it is to join your conference to why people should join your conference.
Right.
And I think that's difficult to do, but I think that's why it's a smart play to go out and get some money secured and change the dynamic of the conversation, because hopefully you can start having more positive conversations about adding membership, so that you don't have to just add Boise State and focus on the West Coast. Like, at some point, it would be nice for the Pac-12 to be able to, reach out east and get some of these schools. But I would agree when you have, the athletic director, Dr. Ed Scott of Memphis, being that, harsh or blunt or just straight up about it, that's
very
not,
direct.
It's just not, I don't think it's what you want to hear if you're the Pac. What you want to hear is like, yeah, we had conversations and at this time the numbers just didn't quite work out for us. Like, just something simple like that. And I feel like Dr. Ed Scott went way out of his way to say that it was a garbage deal that just wouldn't do anything for them. And that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think it is. It's very interesting to me that, you look at the build of the CW network is really interesting to me, because I also think you look at the stations they own, and it's Atlanta, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Tampa, Seattle, Philly. Like, you look at their O&O, what's called O&O, owned and operated stations. And you start to understand that, they don't have a lot of control beyond the stations that they own, obviously. And you start looking at some of the markets that they're in, like their CW sports only affiliates. You're looking at San Diego, Cadillac, Michigan, Hartford, Connecticut, Elmira, New York. Those aren't great Pac-12 markets. Obviously, San Diego's in a different conversation, but if you look at WGN Chicago, how interested are they in a Pac-12 TV game? I don't know that they're that interested in it. Are they going to have to take it? Yeah, they are. But I think that's a big one. And yeah, are they big in Palm Springs? Yes. Is that a Pac-12 market? Absolutely. Absolutely. It is. They have some real wins on the affiliate side. They don't have a cross-country win where you're certainly going to take it.
Right.
I think that's the biggest question, because again, you look at the companies that the CW does business with. Gray Television is a big one. Gray Television is really important because, they're Missouri, they are Florida, they are, Texas. Is, again, I know I'm crazy. Everybody tells me how dumb I am, but Great Television operates in Lubbock, Laredo, like big football markets. They also are in like Harrisonburg, Virginia. So you've got to get those kinds of companies to buy into your Pac-12 TV deal, and I just don't think they will. Not across the board on certain of their stations. Sure, they will. But I think there are real challenges here. So we'll see exactly how this TV deal breaks out. But if you're just tuning in this morning, some of the latest details that we have for you on the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is not done with the AAC. And I think this detail about, this letter of intent, when you are Memphis, Tulane, and USF and everybody else in the AAC, and you have signed this letter saying that you are committed to the AAC, because as we've told you on this show, the AAC does not have a traditional grant of rights. What the AAC has is a contract/charter that says, hey, you're going to grant us the ability to sell the rights to your home games. It is a provision in their charter. It is not a traditional grant of rights. So everybody leaps to this idea that, well, you can leave whenever you want. Well, that's not the case. Is it the ACC's grant of rights? Certainly not. Certainly not. But by most people's accounts, it's a $27 million lump sum payment to the conference to leave the AAC. And if this agreement that everybody in the AAC signed, according to our sources, committing themselves to the AAC, if it's binding, and I think that's the biggest question, if it is binding, that's going to be difficult. And if there's a question of whether or not it is binding, it's going to end up in court. We have not seen it. I want to make this very clear. I have not seen that letter of however you want to describe it. It's been described to me as a letter of intent. It has been described to me as a statement of understanding by one source. Like, they signed a document in the AAC, and I am told every member did, signed a document saying we are committed to the conference going forward. There is a set of provisions in there that says, hey, we are going to go back to our TV partners and try to renegotiate our television contract. We are going to bring in private equity, which I am told the AAC is aggressively doing. But make no mistake about it. Members of the AAC signed a document saying that they committed themselves to the conference. Is it binding? I don't know. In the Mountain West, the letter of engagement, which I am told that's what it is. It's a letter of engagement, is binding. You're not getting out of that conference without paying a substantial fee. Is that the case in the AAC?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
My guess is it is binding, because if I'm giving you a document to commit yourself to something and it's not binding, what good is it? It's not worth the paper it's printed.
Yeah, what are we committing to?
So in my experience, in the opinion of the sources that I've spoken to, that letter is binding.
Yeah. I think, it's a really interesting situation because, again, as we sit here and talk about, the Pac-12 going out and getting, pausing expansion efforts for now because they want to go out and get, a media rights deal done so they can change the dynamic of that conversation with targets. It's a really interesting proposition. How long does it take them to get that TV deal? It takes the Pac-12 a year to get a TV deal. Yeah, I don't it'll take that long, but my point is, what I'm trying to say is, what's the landscape of college football look like once the deal is done? I mean, if it gets done a month from now, obviously things are, pretty much going to look the same as they do now, and that'll be fine.
I also think one of the biggest questions is who's producing those games, because the Pac-12, don't forget, still has assets and facilities to produce live sports. They do not have a schedule for football next season, which I think is also a significant hurdle. If you're doing a deal with Fubo, Amazon Prime Sports does not have production capabilities for an entire season of football. And if you look at the way that they do Thursday night football, that's outsourced. That is not Amazon Prime Sports is not in-house producing those games. Hey, we've got our trucks and equipment deployed. They're outsourcing that. So is the Pac-12 financially and physically, meaning assets, equipment, resources, are they fully capable still to this point to produce their own product? I am told they are. And I think that's probably where they're headed. What is the expense and the cost on that?
That's a great question.
And does that lessen the distribution? I think that's a very big question. We all know they built a brand new production house. So that is in the East Bay in Northern California. To my knowledge, they did not offload their physical assets, their trucks, their broadcast equipment. To my knowledge, they have not offloaded that. The question is, can they still produce games across an entire 10-team season? You're looking at hundreds of football games, hundreds of basketball games. Can you still do that? We're going to find out. And I think that's absolutely part of it. And if you are, again, the streaming side, good. If you're the CW side, I think you want to continue in the light that you are. There's so many unknowns here. In order for the Pac-12 to get to $15 million a year, you're going to have to drop some magic dust on a TV deal, because I just don't see you getting there.
Yeah, well,
I don't know how you do.
And I think, part of the order of operations here too is, the Pac-12 is for sure going to go to these TV partners or prospective TV partners we're talking about and say, hey, we've had conversations again with, Memphis, Tulane, USF, these different schools, and we understand, what it would take to add them. I'm telling you, that's a crucial part of this conversation, because if you're going to your TV partners uneducated about what Memphis wants or what, Tulane or USF or anybody wants,
yep,
you're not going to be able to put together the correct deal. So I just think that ultimately, all this stuff, what it comes down to is how long is it going to take you to get this TV deal done, and just how bad do members want to leave the AAC to get to, I guess what at that point would be the best G5, because that's the other thing. I still maintain the why behind going to the Pac-12 is still a question mark. Like, I don't understand, outside of the money. Like, I think the money is the only reason the Mountain West teams were in for it, right? I mean, obviously you were going to get a pay raise, and that's cool. I get that. But again, if you're these schools out east, like it's not getting you more access to be in the Pac-12. So the only reason you're doing this is for money. And if you actually do take it as seriously as it would appear Memphis and these schools take it as far as student experience, I just think that that's a big hurdle. So I don't think even if you get the TV deal done, that it's just a gimme that these schools will be like, oh yeah, sure, here you go. Like,
well, I think the San Ramon facility for the Pac-12 network is a big deal. I mean, that is and I'm sure you guys know this, we've talked about it at length. They just rolled that thing out less than a year ago. It is a state-of-the-art production and broadcast facility. It's got all the best equipment. I think it's 9 control rooms for live event production. So they certainly have the facility. Let's see if they can do that on hundreds of games a year in football, hundreds and hundreds of games a year. I mean, you're looking at 300 basketball games a year just on the men's side. So you're looking at close to probably 700 games a year in basketball. I mean, that's a lot of games.
Yeah.
That's a lot of production. So we'll see. I mean, it is as the Pac-12 turns. And I think if you're a Pac-12 fan, and I know we have heard from an inordinate percentage of Pac-12 fans who are pissed that we're being critical and not just lock, stock, and barrel, my God, this is amazing, because it's not. Today is the day where you're going to get your wish, because I think this is exactly the right move. Pause your expansion efforts and leave the communication channels open. That's exactly what they're doing. And go all in on getting a media rights deal. or at least the framework of a media rights deal, which is to say, if we do A plus B, that's going to equal a media rights deal of $10 million per team.
Mhm.
You have to get $10 million per team, in my opinion, to be viable.
Yeah.
Period.
Absolutely.
And if they do that, I think you're in good shape. All right. Less of us, more of you. The comment section, as always, is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app. Use the promo code Monty. And do not take my advice on Prize Picks. Holy Toledo Batman. Did I get thrashed on Prize Picks in the Major League Baseball playoffs? I am not sure that I can physically, emotionally, mentally recover from the 0 for beating that I took. And I would just like to say, Gunnar Henderson, if you never get another hit in Major League Baseball, it'll be too soon. Unless you get traded, to the Cubs, then I'll mea culpa this. But Gunnar Henderson, you understand you're supposed to bring a bat to the plate when you actually try to get hits, right? All I needed was 2.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. Just give me a double down the corner. Everything's good. No. 0 for yesterday. No. 0. Francisco Lindor, 2.5 runs, hits, and RBIs. Nothing.
No.
Max Fried against San Diego. All I need is 4.5 pitcher strikeouts. No.
No.
You only got 2. Now, I'm happy you only got 2 because I am here for the Padres and the Dodgers. I'm here for it. But all of you are dead to me. I mean, Francisco Lindor, I don't like you to begin with. You can leave now.
I think I've hit it every time.
I hope you strike out every at-bat for the rest of your career. I don't. That would be terrible. I'm such a bitter loser, right?
I mean, I don't know you to be that person, but whatever.
Thankfully, that is the first loss Chaboy has taken in a minute.
Yeah.
But I am ready for a rebound. I got to be honest with you. Thursday Night Football's tonight. As I always like to say on the show, pimps are going to pimp, right?
Right.
You know when it's football. Old Uncle Monty has you covered. You know that. So when we're talking about Captain Kirk Cousins tonight, going up against Tampa Bay, you're going to take the under on 230.5 yards. Baker Mayfield, here's the problem. He's 243.5. I got to tell you, I think you got to go over more on Baker Mayfield. And then we start talking about where do you go with Tampa Bay wide receivers? Mike Evans is your favorite player on earth ever, I believe. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
But you're Mike Evans fan, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely one of the best receivers we've had in the game. He's not the same guy he was, but
4.5 catches tonight, more or less, against that Atlanta defense.
That's more.
I think that's where I'm going. Remember the formula to win on Prize Picks. Make a 3-pick flex play. That means only 2 of 3 have to win for you to get paid. It's that simple. On Prize Picks, you're going to play a $5 flex play. Now, when you're rolling and you're cashing and your Benzes and Beamers, you're playing a $20 flex play.
Yeah.
And you're usually working in the WNBA playoffs.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
I'm so glad that it's Thursday night, so I don't have to feel like a bad person for betting on the WNBA.
What? You burned out on Katie Clark?
No, she wins. Every time I bet with Katie Clark, she wins. Unfortunately, she done. She gone. So, it. And listen, I have no shame. You want to talk the W? Because it's not W, it's the dub. Thank you.
Dub.
Is that what you want to do tonight? Because Asia Wilson tomorrow is 23.5 points in an elimination game. I'm going to have to go more on that tomorrow on Prize Picks.
Listen, easy gimme on Prize Picks tonight. Kirk Cousins, 47.5 first quarter passing yards. Easy gimme. Easy.
Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app. Use the promo code Monty. You deposit $5. They're going to give you 50 more. It's the best daily fantasy promo I've ever seen. Do it right now. Download the Prize Picks app. Use the promo code Monty. You deposit $5 in a new Prize Picks account. They'll give you 50 more. Boom. Done. That's it. Flex plays. 3 selections in a flex play.
Do it.
You're good to go. You'll play all season long on $55. Trust me when I say that. Let's get you your comments. Aaron Wilson, America's favorite letter carrier for the United States Post Office.
Package.
My guy, Aaron Wilson, great to see you. Appreciate the membership. Calford gifts 10.
Again, I don't know if this has been Calford's month to just be on a mission with memberships, but if you're not a member of this program, after the hundreds of free memberships that Calford has gifted at this point,
it's wild.
I don't know what you're doing.
It is wild. Let's see who picked up the memberships. Let me see if I can find it. You guys, the comment stack today is ridiculous. Thank you so much. The volume of comments today is
huge.
David Groover. Groover, David Groover, which is different than Connor Stallions and Hoover. Vacuum. Okay.
Whatever.
Was gifted Aaron Wilson's membership.
Nice.
Yes. Look at that list of prolifics.
Nice.
Picking it. Don in Kansas. Hello. Getting a membership. Dr. Stomp. Kevin D. Williford.
Kevin D. Nice name.
Patrick Kintz. All gifted memberships. All 10 of you. Welcome to the show.